I've got a spa reservation today. Walk to the hospital, will you? Come on, get down quickly. Eh. If you won't get down by yourself, I'll make you get down. My granddaughter Shirley and I, confused, both feverish and delirious. On a day of heavy snow, we had both come down with a high fever. This was happening in the car, as Jennifer, my son's wife, reluctantly agreed to drive us to the hospital. We couldn't comprehend Jennifer's words and couldn't get up from the car. She must have been displeased with our pitiful state. Jennifer came around to the back seat, dragged me and Shirley out of the car. Now, the nuisances are gone. Good luck making it to the hospital. Laughing loudly, Jennifer drove away. Mom, did she really just abandon us? Even in such a moment, Shirley still saw her as her mother. Shirley had been harassed by Jennifer even before this incident. She hid all the harassment from us adults, always trying to act strong. But when you're sick, your true feelings can show. Feverish and delirious, tears in her eyes, Shirley watched the car drive away. We had been enduring Jennifer's harassment for a while, but this was the last straw. From the hospital phone, I managed to call someone for help. I'm Carol. I retired last year and now work part-time, a 60-year-old housewife. Until 6 months ago, I lived in a small detached house with my husband. However, he suddenly passed away due to illness. It was just 2 months after the illness was discovered. The suddenness of it all made it hard for both my son Edward and me to accept reality. I had been with my husband since we were in junior high. It felt like our hearts and bodies were in the same state. Right after he passed, I couldn't even eat. Sorting through his belongings at home, I couldn't stop crying and barely made any progress. Edward would occasionally come to the house to support me, gradually accepting reality and finishing the home organization. Edward suggested I live with him. But Jennifer is there, so I'll refrain. Edward got married around the age of 30. His wife, Jennifer, a housewife 2 years younger than him, approached him at their workplace. Won over by her passionate pursuit, Edward, after about 6 months of dating, quickly married her. After marrying and retiring, Jennifer was blessed with a child and gave birth to their daughter, Shirley. Jennifer truly adored Edward. Though their meetings were infrequent, it was evident from her actions how much she valued Edward. Perhaps that's why she preferred to keep some distance from the in-laws' house. Jennifer and her family lived about an hour's drive from our home, having bought an apartment there. However, even after marriage, Edward remained very caring towards us, his parents. He once bought a refrigerator for my birthday as a present. Not only that, but for our wedding anniversary, he would take us, his family of 3, on vacations. He was a child with strong family values, by any standard. But it's not like we spoiled him without limits. Of course, we praised him when he did well and scolded him for doing what he shouldn't or when he behaved badly. Even after marriage, we told him not to go out of his way for us and to prioritize Jennifer and their family. However, Edward always said, "Jennifer is very understanding. She always supports me," and never changed his ways. But Jennifer seemed to harbor some dissatisfaction towards Edward. In moments when it was just the two of us women, she would indirectly speak ill of us, as if she harbored hostility. There were no direct actions like breaking things, but I feared something might happen if we spent too much time together. Edward was a good kid, but not the best at sensing things. Jennifer seemed to take advantage of that, acting as a gentle and kind woman in front of Edward. Between the two of them, they seemed to manage well enough. Honestly, I had some reservations about moving in with them due to these circumstances. Living alone can be tough, right? Jennifer and Shirley are both on board with you moving in. Having my granddaughter Shirley around meant I wouldn't be alone with Jennifer as much. Plus, it was unlikely she would do anything in front of Edward. Shirley was cheerful and more like Edward in personality. She was fond of me, too. Holding on to a sliver of hope, I nodded in agreement. All right. I'll be careful not to be a bother. Please let me live with you. You're more than welcome. We'll get your room ready. Since I wasn't giving up my own home, I only had to pack the essentials. Thus, I moved in with Edward and his family, keeping only the most important things at my house. My faint hope was quickly shattered. After moving in, I experienced harassment from Jennifer, especially when Edward wasn't around. She would open parcels I ordered online, eat the ice cream I bought without permission. And sometimes my laundry was the only batch not washed. Carol can do it herself since she's capable. Please buy your detergent, too. If I used the dryer, I'd be scolded for wasting electricity. Reluctantly, I started separating my laundry into a different basket. Yet Edward noticed nothing. Instead, he thought I was voluntarily taking on household chores. This was likely because he spent little time at home and left all the housework to Jennifer. Jennifer actively takes care of Shirley in front of Edward, so life goes on to some extent. However, this life felt suffocating for me. I debated countless times whether to report this to Edward or leave the house. But I thought all it took was for me to endure. I didn't come here to break up a family with a daughter. Instead of talking to Edward, I kept a diary of my unspoken frustrations. As potential evidence for anything that might happen, detailing everything meticulously. Using a voice recorder would have made for stronger evidence. But I didn't want to escalate things, so I refrained. It was frustrating, but I was living under their roof. I was determined to endure until things settled down. That was until I saw Jennifer harassing Shirley. I caught her throwing Shirley's stuffed animal into the trash. It didn't seem like discipline or teaching a lesson. Edward has always adored children, especially his daughter Shirley, to the point of spoiling her. He regularly bought her the things she wanted, including the stuffed animal she just had thrown away. As far as I could tell, Shirley hadn't done anything wrong to deserve that. Shirley, did something happen? So I asked her. It's always like this. Always? Nothing happens when Dad is here. But when he's gone, she becomes like a demon, scary. That bad? Sometimes there's no food, and she tore the clothes Dad bought because Shirley is a bad girl. It seemed Jennifer was jealous of Shirley too. It was obvious to me how much Edward cared for Jennifer. The engagement and wedding rings were from a high-end brand Jennifer wanted, costing a total of $10,000. He never missed giving presents for birthdays or anniversaries. Yet, Jennifer felt she wasn't his number one priority. In front of Edward, she was a good mother, but without him, she acted like a tyrant. With Dad, Mom buys me anything and is kind. I'm scared of getting scolded by Mom, so please keep this a secret. Shirley is in 2nd grade this year. A young child bearing this alone. Why didn't I notice sooner? Enduring it alone wasn't the solution. I regret focusing solely on my issues. The day I witnessed the harassment, Edward came home past 11 p.m. due to overtime. I resolved to talk to him the next day. But he had to leave on an emergency business trip. With a significant issue at hand, there was no time to talk. While Edward was away, Jennifer invited friends over daily. Birds of a feather flocked together. Her friends didn't find her behavior odd. Jennifer did as she pleased, hosting parties at home. During this time, not only was I neglected, but Shirley wasn't even provided meals. The harassment towards me escalated. I needed to find a way to consult Edward over the phone. But Jennifer sensed my intentions. Don't report to Edward. It would be troublesome if my position were jeopardized further. Jennifer took both my mobile phone and Shirley's. I couldn't retrieve them without knowing where they were hidden. Although there's a phone in my own house, I didn't know Edward's cell number. Moreover, with Jennifer often home, we were under constant surveillance. Escaping was difficult, and running away alone would be futile. I had to find a way to rescue Shirley too. I was starting to panic. Jennifer's neglect had become evident. I was cooking for Shirley with groceries I bought with my own money. I took care of all the laundry, walked her to and from lessons, and handled everything from taking out the trash to cleaning. Despite this, Jennifer continued to host parties every day, and if I missed even a day of cleanup, the house would start to smell, affecting Shirley, who has a chronic respiratory condition and needs regular visits to a major hospital for blood tests, X-rays, and other exams, which I accompany her to. Grandma, are you overdoing it? It's okay, I'll protect you, Shirley. I hope Dad comes back soon. Seeing Shirley tear up made me realize the urgency of resolving our situation. It had only been 2 months since I moved in. I had quit my part-time job due to the move and wasn't part of any community groups like senior clubs. With my mobile phone taken, I had no means of communication. I had no one to directly consult with. I wasn't even informed how long Edward would be on his business trip. It was the beginning of days filled with despair. 2 months into this life, in February, possibly due to global warming, the year experienced extreme temperature fluctuations. Mental stress likely played a role, but both Shirley and I had been feeling unwell. Sometimes Shirley would skip school. School is better than home, she insisted. Then came a day with snowfall said to occur once every 10 years. The day before, I felt unwell as usual and woke up with a fever of 102.2 degrees Fahrenheit. Shirley seemed to have caught a fever too, struggling even to get up. We had no antipyretic pain relievers at home. It could be a seasonal epidemic. I had heard that using over-the-counter fever reducers could be risky in such cases. Somehow, we needed to get to a pediatrician or an internist. Jennifer had been aware of our ill health, but had done nothing. There was no sign she would help this time either. The nearest hospital was about a 10-minute walk. Though Shirley was in 2nd grade, she was taller than her peers. At over 60, I've never been injured, but physically, it was demanding. If only I weren't feverish. Reality remained unchanged despite my wishes. I managed to get Jennifer to call a taxi company. But due to the heavy snow, all were out. And with uncertain wait times, they couldn't dispatch one. How could I get Shirley to the hospital? I had no choice but to rely on Jennifer. After much deliberation, I reached that conclusion. Please, can you drive us to the hospital? I pleaded with Jennifer. She seemed to ponder before responding. All right, but asking me for a favor means you'll need to provide something in return, right? She said, implying I had to pay her as if she were a taxi. If it meant getting Shirley the care she needed, I had no choice but to agree. It's not much, but will this do? I handed Jennifer all I had, $100. She visibly grimaced at the amount, presumably expecting more. It's no surprise the amount was small. I had quit my part-time job. Despite this, I was covering the expenses for Shirley that Jennifer wasn't paying. The $100 was a significant amount for me, but it couldn't be helped. Jennifer, with a look of dissatisfaction, securely placed the $100 in her wallet. Well, all right. Hurry up and get ready. Her reluctance was evident, but it seemed she would drive us after all. unsure when Jennifer might change her mind. I quickly prepared Shirley, who was barely able to stand, and we got into the car. Because of the rush, I was still in my pajamas. Jennifer just looked at her mobile phone while we were getting ready. We set off amidst the heavy snow that blurred our vision. Jennifer's irritated driving came to an abrupt halt halfway to the hospital. What happened? Did the car break down? I just remembered I have a spa appointment today. Walk the rest of the way to the hospital. Come on, get out quickly. If you won't get out by yourself, I'll make you get out. Shirley, delirious with fever, and I, confused. Couldn't understand what Jennifer was saying and couldn't get up from the car. Apparently displeased by our inability to move, Jennifer came around to the back seat and literally dragged us out of the car. Now, the nuisances are gone. Good luck making it to the hospital. Laughing loudly, Jennifer drove away. Mom, did she really just abandon us? Even in such a moment, Shirley still regarded her as her mother. With tears in her eyes and a feverish gaze, she watched the car drive away. Shirley, let's go to the hospital first. We'll deal with Mom later. My words might not have been very convincing, given I hadn't managed to do anything so far. But that was all I could offer at that moment. The guilt and helplessness I felt towards Shirley nearly made me cry, but I was desperate to hold back the tears. Supporting each other, we managed to reach the hospital. Mom. Even while receiving treatment, Shirley mentioned Jennifer. Why must my young granddaughter endure such hardship? My patience had reached its limit. Fortunately, it was the hospital Shirley regularly visited, and they agreed to admit her. Hospital life was more restful than being at home. I realized then how tense I had been. Having recovered a bit both mentally and physically, we were cleared to leave the hospital. It had been 3 days since we were at home. Jennifer's surprised face greeted us upon our return. Seriously? You're alive? I thought, what a way to speak, as I shielded Shirley behind me. Yes, we were properly treated at the hospital. The worst. I kicked you out because I didn't want this place to become a crime scene. It would have been better if you had just disappeared. Jennifer was scolding us with a look of disdain. Her face turned pale the next moment, thinking she was alone in facing us. Jennifer, what are you saying? The person who came from behind us was Edward. Edward, why are you here? Back during our hospital stay, I had made a phone call to a certain person. It was Edward. Since Shirley's hospital had Edward's mobile number as an emergency contact, I asked the hospital to let me call him to report our hospitalization. Being a blood relative allowed the call to go through. Jennifer had been in regular contact with Edward. However, she had not conveyed our health issues. She claimed to be handling all the household chores herself. It's cold recently, you both should rest well. Can Jennifer take over for you? Jennifer isn't here. Why? Has she left already? We were supposed to be brought by Jennifer, but she left us on the road. I reported to Edward everything Jennifer had done to us, including the harassment towards Shirley, and the neglect since Edward left. I can't believe Jennifer would do such a thing, but if you say so, it must be true. I'll hurry back, so please wait a little longer. Initially, Edward was in denial. My flurry of words made him realize the seriousness of the situation. However, he wanted to see the evidence with his own eyes. I implored him to see for himself and requested he take leave. As promised, Edward managed to finish his work early and came home temporarily. Jennifer, explain everything. Was what you just said truly what you think? No, it was just a joke, obviously. Mom, let's stop this. Shirley, who had been watching us argue, spoke up. She began to recount the mistreatment she had suffered from Jennifer, choking up with tears at times, with the severity of the actions being too much for an elementary school student. I can't believe it. I didn't think she was that kind of person. It's not true. Shirley, stop lying. Edward, usually gentle, had a tense expression. He rushed to console Shirley, who continued to cry. Despite Jennifer's continued denials, I pulled out the diary. Here's the evidence. This is all written by Carol, right? It's fabricated. In fact, I'm the one being harassed. Please believe me, Edward. Jennifer clung to Edward's arm, crying. Edward, ignoring Jennifer, started reading my diary. There's more evidence here. Come in, please. I regretted not buying a voice recorder. There was no turning back now. I realized I needed to present irrefutable evidence or Jennifer might manipulate the situation to her advantage. In a move that felt partly like a gamble, I believed there would be physical evidence and let Edward into the house. My hunch was correct. It appeared Jennifer had hosted a party at our home the previous day. The living room was cluttered with empty alcohol containers and uneaten fast food, creating a slight odor, especially since we had been away for 3 days. So, everything Mom has been saying is true. I just hadn't gotten around to cleaning up yet. Jennifer, we need to divorce. I'll take care of Shirley. Edward, cutting off Jennifer's excuses to suggest divorce, seemed to show he wasn't willing to entertain her justifications any longer. Jennifer, faced with the idea of divorce, couldn't accept it, breaking down like a child, incapable of coherent discussion. Right there, Edward called Jennifer's parents to explain the situation over speakerphone, allowing us to hear their reactions. After initial shock, Jennifer's parents sighed deeply and ended the call with continuous apologies to us. Jennifer didn't calm down enough to talk properly after that, only repeating apologies to Edward without once explaining herself to me. It was clear staying there wouldn't change anything. Excluding Jennifer, the 3 of us decided to begin a new life in my standalone home. Edward, still somewhat attached, tried to engage Jennifer in conversation several times afterwards. However, she only ever responded with denials. It's not true. I'm not at fault. This infuriated me once more, reminding me of a child's denial. She wasn't inherently bad. I had hoped if she changed her behavior, we might have a chance again. But it never came to that. The absence of any change led Edward to decide on divorce. Communication became impossible, so they proceeded with lawyers to finalize it. Shirley initially showed some resistance to the divorce. It's sad for Mom. I think Dad should be with her, despite enduring so much mistreatment herself. Probably, Jennifer's good mother facade in Edward's presence was hard for Shirley to forget. A small act of kindness left a lasting impression. Perhaps, in some ways, Jennifer was pitiable, her life having drastically altered since meeting Edward. Shirley's words allowed me to feel pity for Jennifer for the first time, aside from my anger. However, Edward and I always shower Shirley with the same love. Being with us, where she doesn't have to fear people's faces, must be more comforting for her. Gradually getting used to life in the detached house and feeling secure away from her mother, Shirley began to resolve to distance herself from Jennifer. We were in a position to demand child support and damages, but it seemed Edward couldn't bring himself to do it. Moreover, as Jennifer had been a housewife, she had no savings or income. Thus, we did not pursue any financial claims, and the divorce proceeded without them. Jennifer's parents, having been contacted by Edward, flew in from their rural home, which is quite far from where we live, so it took them some time to arrive. After the divorce was finalized, Jennifer was taken in by her parents, who came to our place to apologize in person for the trouble caused. They even offered me cash as compensation for the inconvenience, particularly towards me. According to Jennifer's parents, she had become mentally unwell after separating from Edward. She had a history of getting deeply involved in her romantic relationships since her student days, sometimes causing trouble or distress to her partners. Each breakup left her deeply depressed, sometimes confining herself at home. She had become somewhat more stable mentally as she began to lead a fulfilling life outside of her personal affairs. But then she met and fell in love with Edward. Edward's kind nature, always trying not to make her feel insecure, was comforting for her. However, she disliked his kindness towards others. All these factors combined led to the current situation. Her parents have since helped her start psychiatric treatment, but recovery seems slow, with Jennifer mostly staying in her room. Hospitalization was considered, but for now, she is being closely monitored at home. At the doctor's suggestion, all of Edward's contact information has been deleted, and he has done the same, so there's no longer any contact between them. I declined to accept the inconvenience money, asking for it to be put towards Jennifer's treatment instead. Edward seems unaware of Jennifer's current situation. We, the parents, debated whether to inform him but decided against it, thinking neither Edward nor Shirley would want to revisit those memories. Especially Shirley, who might think, if only I hadn't been there. The scars Jennifer inflicted during her childhood are too significant. We've decided to keep it among ourselves. Life with Edward and Shirley has begun, and not once have I felt like a burden. I feel sorry that Shirley had to transfer schools, but she insists it doesn't bother her. Edward tries to finish work early and come home. I haven't resumed part-time work, but joined a local seniors exercise club, realizing the importance of community engagement through this ordeal. This has also allowed me to get to know our neighbors. Now, I live modestly happy days with my beloved son and